Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back once again. Today we're going to be taking a look at a new entry from Rike Knife out of China. Now I've had a chance to show you guys a couple of Rike knives before, and also a couple of other premium Chinese made knives such as Rike Knives and Reate. And when you get to the Chinese knife market, it really is those three brands. Those are the ones that are setting the bar the highest. You've got Reate, you've got Rike Knives, and you've got Rike Knife. And what they're all doing that's changing the industry is creating unique original designs and offering very high quality materials as well as superb and in many cases pretty much perfect fit and finish on all of their knives regardless of the price points. Now, when we talk about these Chinese brands, a lot of people want to include Kaiser, and I certainly do not, because they began their career by stealing other people's designs like Rick Hinderer and Todd Begg, and those are all very easy to identify. And the materials really aren't up as high in the quality range as many of their competitors, and they're just not made as well, but their prices for the most part reflect that. When you get to these top three brands coming out of China, you know, they do have many affordable knives, but they also offer some premium choices, and this is one of them. Now, this is a $650 retail knife. That means you could probably get it for a couple dollars less if you shop around, but they're set up with all the major retailers like Blade HQ and places like that, so you're going to be able to find some availability until the limited editions are sold out. And the Thor6 is one of those limited production knives. And what makes this so special, and why I've chosen to have this in my collection and to showcase it here for you, is the fact that it's an integral. Now, if this were not an integral, I can probably guess that the price would be about $200, $250 less. So you've got to keep in mind that the fact that it's a titanium integral is going to raise the price dramatically because it's a lot of work. This is one solid piece of titanium as it begins life, and they are milling everything out in order to create the knife handle. So they're doing something that a lot of custom makers don't do, that a lot of big, huge production knife companies do not do or maybe cannot do, especially at the given price points that they want to stay at. You know, you're not going to see probably, you know, $150 or $100 Kershaw come out as a titanium integral, just because there's so much machining time, so much design time, and so much work that has to go into cleaning everything up after the CNC is done, that they simply can't put that kind of time into a knife and then, you know, charge so very little for it unless they were selling, you know, maybe 10,000 of them during that year. Because as you start doing really, really high quantities, of course, that lowers your unit production costs. But all that aside, what we're looking at here is something quite remarkable. What attracted me mainly to this is the bone-like, almost alien bone-like structure of this knife. It almost looks like a human spine when you look at the edges of the knife. Also enhanced here at the thumb opening of the blade. And they do a lot of different colors. Green may not be your thing, and it may change the way that you view this knife. They do them in a lot of different colors. They also do a plain, just regular plain old gray titanium, which looks fantastic. I've had a couple comments on my Instagram saying, oh, you know, that bright green kind of makes it look like a gas station knife. And I get that. It's easy to cast dispersions on it based on the color that you don't like or the fact that it's an overly vivid color. I like that. There were a lot of choices. There's blue, and I think there's a bronze, like a golden bronze, and the plain titanium. And there was something about the green that just, you know, it just jumps. It pops. But everybody's got their own individual taste. Let's talk about the specs on this first, then we'll talk about my likes and dislikes and see where you fall in that spectrum and see if you agree and disagree with either of those columns. First off, the overall length is 7.5 inches. Blade length overall is 3.25 inches, but your cutting edge, because of this rather large choil here, the cutting edge is 3.125 inches. The blade height is 1 inch, and it's a very, very slim. I haven't measured the thickness, but it's very, very, very slim blade stock on here. And going into the premium materials, you're looking at Bowler M390. Now, that means the blade steel is going to be very resistant to wear. It's going to be highly corrosion resistant. It's an overall very high performing steel, and it's a very expensive steel as well. They've done a really nice clean flat grind with a, you almost want to call it a satin finish, but this is more of a very fine blasted finish. Has a little bit of reflectivity to it. As you can see, my fingers in there, but you can't actually see, like in a polished mirror, the details of the fingers. Handle length is 4 1/4 inches, so it's a very compact knife when it's closed. Oh yeah, it feels so good. And the great thing is, because they've milled out so much of that handle, that the weight is under 3 ounces. It's like 2.8, 2.85 ounces. It's extremely lightweight. You're going to have a steel-on-steel lockup because you have that steel lock bar insert built in. And it does seem to have an over-travel stop as well. Let's take a look at the blade centering. Dead on perfect, like you would expect from a custom knife or a really high production, really high quality production knife. There is your lockup. Pretty early, but not precariously early. I don't have any reason to feel that it's going to collapse on me at any point. But what I want you to focus on, besides the high quality materials and the flashy nature of the colors, is looking at the detail work that's been put into all of the machining. Now, I know a lot of people look at knives that are made with CNC machines, and due to their inexperience, they just go, well, it's so much easier if the knife is CNC made. You know, they're not really working all that hard. It's a quicker process and this and that. It's actually not. It's not any quicker than really doing it all by hand on a manual mill. You have to obviously be very proficient in CAD and be able to program the CNC to be able to cut all the things that you want to do. You have to sit there and babysit the machine while it's doing all of the work that it's doing. And it's not spitting out finished, complete parts. Every part of this, they've had to go into every section here and clean up every cross member, every pocket, every hole, every line. They've had to go in and precisely fit the blade to the lock, to the handle, obviously set the detent. All the things that you would do in traditional knife making is still done if the knife is CNC machined. The CNC does not make the knife, it does not assemble the knife, it does not finish the knife. Every component that comes out of it, you know, it's just like sending something out for a water jet. You've got to clean everything up. Nothing is clean. Nothing is where you can just screw it together and call it a finished product. There's still a lot of work that goes into it. They've done some very clean finish work on the titanium, then obviously the very bright green anodization. Love the sculpted pocket clip. That's another big deal. You've got a blind screwed pocket clip, so there's no exposed hardware showing where the clip is actually attached. They've done some nice detail work on the clip as well. You know, it's one of the things that they could do if they wanted to cheap out. They can make this crazy cool knife and they just put a basic spring clip on there, or a basic, you know, milled clip that really doesn't have a lot of detail in it. Instead, they've put in the thought and effort in design and in the manufacturing to give you a clip that complements the overall design and matches it very, very well. You do have a lanyard hole back here at the very tip. I love all the cutouts here that allows you to see the blade as it's folded up into the knife. And they do make Damascus, I think they're actually Damasteel versions in the blade steel as well, and that allows you to see the beautiful pattern of the steel through the handle when it's closed. There is Rike's proprietary custom-made titanium pivot, this time anodized in blue. And I love the fact that it is an integral. So number one, you don't have any hardware that's holding the frame together or holding the back spacer in place, because there is none. So the only hardware that you see on this entire knife is just the pivot screw, and the hardware that holds the steel lock bar insert into the titanium lock bar. Take a look at the inside of it. And you see that all this is truly one piece. And again, that's what really determines the price and the value of this little knife, is the fact that it is an integral. And they've done quite a few integrals and done them very, very well. The action is fantastic, very snappy, very fast. So I can light switch it, or I can probably push button it. Yep, well, it doesn't really push button as much. Your finger's still rocking back quite a bit. But it's a nice, quick, snappy action. I love the blade shape on this. You've got a good amount of belly to the blade, so you're definitely going to have a lot of usable surface for cutting. It's going to be a nice slicer. Now, the one thing that I would do differently on this knife is I was really taking a look at it. While it is wonderfully sharp, I don't know how my camera is going to focus on this, but the edge is very rough. It's almost like, well, the thing is, it appears rough, but it doesn't feel very rough. Yeah, actually it does. I'd say it's probably a 120, maybe 220 grit for the final edge. And I would have taken this up probably to at least 600, then a nice polished strop, which would give it more of a polished look. Now, I'm not big on the whole overly mirror polished edges, like the Wicked Edge mirror polished edges and all that, because it reduces the efficacy of that edge, or how many different types of things you can cut with it. You do need a little bit of tooth to your edge, a little bit of sawtooth action, but it should be more microscopic and not really clearly visible as you're looking at the edge. So I definitely would have liked to have seen that smoother, especially on a $650 knife. So, you know, 600, 800, maybe 1,000 grit, and then a nice little polished strop would have really, really made that look spectacular. But it's a tiny little niggle across the entire body of work here. I think everything on this was very, very well done. The lock bar tension is pretty stout. I mean, you've really got to put some effort into unlocking it, and you'll feel that as you're closing the knife, you'll feel the friction on the blade just a little bit. But again, you have a very short knife, very tiny knife, so it has a very small lock bar. And there is a little lock bar relief here. Maybe a little more relief would have been good, or the fact that it's only cut from here to here, maybe cutting it back a little bit further, you know, but then you're interrupting the design. So at some point, maybe you're going for form over function a little bit. Now, it's nothing bad. It's not like it's inconvenient or it's going to hurt your little, you know, delicate little baby thumb. But it's just, if you're going to spend $650, you're going to be a little bit more critical of the finer things, the smaller details, than perhaps if this were half the price. If this were a, you know, $300-400 knife, maybe you could give it a little, you know, pass for something like that. But, you know, this is a premium price point, especially when you're buying a Chinese-made knife. Now, that's not a big deal for me, but for a lot of people, they go, well, if I'm going to buy a Chinese-made knife and it's going to be in this price range, they've really got to step above and beyond so many other available American brands. And I totally get that. So that's why I bring those little things up. Are they an issue? No. Does it change the functionality of the knife in any way? No. But at this price range, yeah, maybe a little bit of a finer edge would have been a nice idea. The grinds on here are nice and clean. The flats intersect very, very nicely. You've got a very prominent swedge coming right down to the tip. Beautifully done. So the knife overall, even without all of the machined carvings into it, has a nice character and a nice design flow overall. Everything is contoured nicely and rounded. There are no sharp, you know, edges to the edge of the handle where it creates any hot spots. The placement of the pocket clip is nice. It kind of disappears into your hand, so you don't really feel it as you're holding it. Now, while this isn't a knife designed for hardcore, heavy use, it's still going to be something that you're probably going to use on a daily basis. Being this small and being this lightweight means it's going to be accessible and easy for you to carry, so you might carry it more often than some of your other knives. So it's got to have some utility to it. It's got to have some practical feeling to it. I personally, with the size of my fingers, wouldn't be choking up on that choil at all because the very back of the edge is sharpened. So you probably could slice yourself pretty easily. So you're going to keep your finger behind the flipper tab, using it as a guard. You've got a nice usable thumb ramp here. And that bone sculpting almost acts like jimping in some small way. But I love the detail work. I love how much thought they put into this overall design. Now, given my last name, Skelton, I like things that are skeleton related, skulls and things like that. So that was the first thing that attracted me, was the spinal cord, or the bone motif that goes through it. But it kind of comes across as almost like this alien insect sort of thing as well, which I also think is pretty damn cool. Now, we all have a lot of run-of-the-mill, standard, basic, everyday carry knives, so because of that, I don't mind going way out in left field for certain knives just to have something different. Would this be everybody's choice for an everyday carry if they only had 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 knives? Probably not. You know, you're going to reach for your Koenig Arius, you're going to reach for your Sabenzas, you're going to have your basic style of knives that kind of do everything and are almost wallflowers. They don't jump out at you. There's nothing particularly crazy about the designs. There's nothing alienating, I should say. And with this, I can definitely see people running hot or cold with it. It is a unique design. It is striking. The color is vibrant and really stands out. And to some, they might find it obnoxious. And to some, they might go, that's the reason I would buy it, because I love that bright green. And that green is hard to achieve. It's hard to nail that color and get it really perfectly green and perfectly vivid. Green and purple, those are bitches to anodize into titanium. So I'd say overall, I think Rike Knife has done a fantastic job on this knife. It is their premium price point. They do go up higher if you get into the Damasteel blades, but if you're shopping around, maybe find somebody on the secondary market letting one go, and maybe they're in a desperate situation. Their dog's kidney fell out of its anus and they've got to take it directly to the doggy emergency room and they need money fast. And JG Wentworth can't help, and they might be selling it for $400, $450. Jump on it, grab it, because I think you're really going to enjoy it, and it's going to be something unique in your collection. That's it for me, guys. I'm going to hop out of here for now. Stay tuned, because I've got more videos on the way.